Our goal is not only to get you unstuck, but to improve your decision making process, to improve your decision making capabilities. Your ability to grow that great practice, great life is directly correlated to your ability to learn how to make better, faster, more impactful decisions.
Welcome to Great Practice, Great Life by Atticus Incorporated. What if you could hang out with successful small and solo law firm attorneys, ask them about their successes and failures, their business strategies and mindset habits, then take an insight or two to guide your own growth in your practice? Each week, Steve Riley shares an in-depth look at how to work less while maintaining high client service standards, reduce your stress levels while growing your income, and find time to make changes when you are time-starved. Steve is a lawyer coach for more than 20 years and a former trial attorney. His goal is to provide strategies to help you balance your lives and grow your practice. Now, here's Steve.
Hi, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. I first want to thank you for showing up to do the work. There are some days where no matter what you tell yourself, it doesn't feel like a great life and it doesn't feel like a great practice. It just feels like a slog. So I just want to encourage you, every step forward today, no matter how small, is still a step towards your greatness. Some days building a great life and a great practice doesn't feel so great, but it's in these moments of you showing up, doing the work, putting in the repetitions, that your strength is forged. Keep showing up because every effort counts. You are creating something extraordinary, and that is ultimately what your great life looks like. So the days when you just don't feel like taking that step forward, take the step. We're here to support you. The whole Atticus community is here to help you build a great practice and great life. So thanks for showing up today. Thanks for taking the effort. Thanks for taking the step. Because together, we're going to work in a collaborative way to help you build what you want. Today is going to be a unique episode. It's just going to be you and me, and we're going to talk about helping you get unstuck. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about brain science, metacognition, how to use your massive brain to help you build that great life that you're envisioning. The challenge is that sometimes we get jammed up in our heads. And this whole conversation between us today is about getting unstuck and breaking that traffic jam in your head. It may not look like it, but the leverage point for you building what you want in the future is your ability to make quicker, better, and bolder decisions. The leverage point for you will always be your ability to take an information, create a goal, and then make a decision. Sometimes we get jammed up in our head because we have too many decisions going on and we get a traffic jam. So I don't want you to think about how do I dial back. What I want to do is teach you a process, a 6-step process that I call the fast focus process to help you unjam the traffic jam in your head. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about helping you unjam where you might be stuck in making bigger, bolder decisions for your life. So here's what I'd like you to do. I know it's going to be hard if you're on the treadmill or if you're walking, but I'm going to encourage you just to take a moment, whether you dictate this, handwrite it, put it on a cocktail napkin, I don't care. I just want you to write down 3 or 4 decisions that you've been stuck on making. They could be big decisions, little decisions, massive decisions. And they're just kind of jamming you up and they're really causing a traffic jam in your head. You're not really sure what to do. I'll give you mine. I'll give you a simple one, a big one, and let's say a medium one. A big one for me is whether or not to renew my office lease. My landlord's raised up my rent. I'm not pleased about it. It's not great space, but it seems to work for me. It's very convenient to me. But, I'm not happy about it. And I've been agonizing about it. I can find cheaper space close by. Should I do it? I don't know. But that's kind of a big decision for me. Adds complexity to my life. 2, whether to do a solo podcast. I don't like to do solo podcasts. I don't like the sound of my voice. I have a speech impediment. I got all kinds of anxiety issues about doing solo podcast. I get it. But my podcast coach tells me sometimes you got to do solo podcast, and today is that day. 3rd, a small one. I got to piece of expensive exercise equipment that I love, but it's not working right. And I get annoyed that I'm going to have to spend that kind of money again on that stupid piece of exercise equipment that I love so much that I'm now in an argument in my head over whether or not to replace that exercise equipment. I know it's crazy. I know. But I want you to take a few minutes just so you can get a sense of where you're wrestling with making decisions. And these are not really hard decisions, or they might be hard decisions. I want you to just kind of download from that big brain of yours a few places where you're stuck. Now, I'll sit here and wait. You can put pause, whatever you want to do. Just wait a few minutes, but I'm going to encourage you to write something down in one way, shape, or form because it's going to really work for you if you do that. Okay, welcome back. So let's go ahead and talk about that great, big, amazing brain of yours. Really, what I'd like to do is talk about how sometimes we create traffic jams in our brain. Sometimes we have small decisions, large decisions that pile up, and they can create a cycle of stress and indecision. And this phenomenon occurs because the more we put into that brain, the more decision fatigue we have. Now, in the legal industry, we may have even more decision fatigue, kind of like doctors, surgeons. We have to make a lot of decisions quickly as it relates to cases. Consequently, we burn up a lot of cognitive capabilities in making case decisions, and we don't leave a lot of decision making over for ourselves. So we actually really enhance and increase the cognitive load in our brain. Now, as a result of that, good decision making starts to deteriorate over time. And little decisions, big decisions can feel overwhelming when they start to accumulate. They can really start to build up. Then you put yourself into a position where you go, I really want to have a great life and a great practice, which actually increases the load because you're looking at big goals. You're looking at how do I have a bigger future? How do I have a better practice? How do I have a greater life? How do I make a bigger difference for my family? And these things also increase the cognitive load on your brain. So I want you to think of it like a traffic jam. In your mind, as you're doing whatever you're doing, think about a rotary, a traffic rotary, one of those circle things. There's a lot of them in Europe, a couple of them here in the US, and they're really designed so traffic comes in one way and goes out the other way. But have you ever been to a major one, like at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris? You might have 12 different lanes, people going by honking, blowing horns, etc. There was one outside the Colosseum in Rome that was insane. And there's also little ones around town in a little town called The Villages here in Florida. Some of you might know that place. But ultimately, these are things that are designed to keep the traffic flowing. However, what happens in this rotary if there's too many cars? And imagine if there's trucks, cars, and scooters all trying to get through that rotary together. And we get too many of them in that rotary. And consequently, people are honking each other. There's a traffic jam. Somebody goes at a different angle. Somebody cuts somebody off. There's some hand gestures going on inside that brain of yours. But the problem starts to occur when the traffic gets slower. The stress compounds on all the different drivers. And we have too many things happening at once in that rotary. And everything starts to get overwhelmed and jammed up. So if there's a few cars going through that rotary, no big deal. But however, if you're trying to put trucks, big decisions, cars, medium decisions, scooters, little decisions through that rotary, it can get jammed up. Now, for a normal person, an average person, that may not be a big deal. They'll just feel a little overwhelmed and they'll dial back. However, for you, you're playing a game, and your game is called Great Life, Great Practice. So consequently, you are taking on more than the average creature. So I want you to think about this for a few minutes, because as you're trying to grow and you're trying to make better decisions faster and bolder, that means we have to put more traffic into your rotary. So think about this. We're actually creating a situation where you're going to increase the anxiety and stress in your life purposefully. So let's go back to the traffic rotary in your brain. You have small decisions, the scooters, medium-sized decisions, the cars, big decisions, the trucks, and you're trying to make a decision. Our decisions, what starts to happen is those trucks, cars, and scooters start to honk the horn because they're getting jammed up in the rotary. There's no decisions being made. They're just going in a circle, a cycle, so to speak. And when they start honking the horn, what happens to you is you start to feel anxiety. And this is your brain going, oh my gosh, how am I going to handle all this? And so the anxiety further amplifies the issue because now your brain, instead of trying to make decisions, is looking at everything as a threat. So everything goes from, is this a good decision or a bad decision, to a threat. So it actually starts to narrow your capability of decision making because your amygdala is kicking in and everything starts to feel like a threat. So instead of making a decision, the anxiety causes you to slow down and procrastinate. So the more you get overloaded, the less you're using the most important component of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, to make decisions, the more you slow down and further procrastinate, which only enhances or causes greater traffic jam. So what happens as you try and cope with this, the anxiety increases, which further enhances the procrastination, which only causes a greater traffic jam, which only causes more beeping and stress. So it's not a good situation if you're trying to move forward in life. I like to call this cycle, this traffic jam, the cycle of anxiety and procrastination. So just think about it in your head on that rotary going in circles and circles and circles. So on one hand, you're sitting here going, my anxiety increases. I want to avoid making decisions because I'm really stressed out. Consequently, I procrastinate. Consequently, I get a backlog of decisions. Consequently, because of the overload on my brain, I'm actually making poor decisions because the cognitive overload is even harder on me, which I realize I'm not making great decisions. I'm making snap decisions. I might be being mean to people when I don't mean to be mean to people because I'm stressed out. I'm snapping at my family. I'm snapping at other people, which only increases the anxiety again. And then we just have this horrible cycle going in circles and circles and circles and circles and circles. What do you do? What do you do? That's really what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about the fast focus strategy, which is what I've nicknamed it, helping you get unstuck. Now, here's our first strategy. Strategy one, or step one, is to schedule what I call the unstuck meeting with your brain. Literally that, the unstuck meeting with your brain. Now, you're going to budget it for 15 minutes. If you can't find 15 minutes, put 5 minutes. I'd prefer that you go ahead and do 5 minutes or 15 minutes as soon as possible, rather than think, I'll deal with this in 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks, it's only going to get worse. What I want you to do is say, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes today or 15 minutes today, and I'm going to work on this project today. Now, I'm going to give you another tip. You want to take this on in handwriting. You don't want to do this with typing or just thinking about it, because thinking about it, all you're going to do is move the traffic in circles, and that's part of the problem. You're thinking way too much about it. What I want to do is use a couple of metacognition techniques, and the metacognition techniques allow you to think about your thinking. That's the core concept of metacognition, allowing you to have self-awareness about how you think about things. So the traffic rotary are unmade decisions that are causing you stress and anxiety, causing further procrastination. So we first need to take a time to look at what's going on there, what's happening at the rotary. We need to examine this. So the first thing to do is schedule an unstuck meeting, and that's what I call it, the unstuck meeting with your brain. And I'm going to recommend that you turn everything off, set a timer, and work probably for 15 minutes. And I'll walk through how to do this, but I want you to do this by yourself. I want you to do it with a pen or pencil so you can handwrite. The handwriting is important because it engages the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to quickly problem solving, reduces the anxiety in your brain, and allows you to focus. So handwriting is crucial. I'm going to recommend that you don't type at this moment. I'm going to just recommend handwriting. Step two, organize the traffic by the type of vehicle and how quickly you can make a decision to get that vehicle out of the rotary, out of the traffic jam. Your job is to think like a traffic cop. Now, you can stand in the middle of the rotary and say, okay, you go this way, you go this way, you go this way, but that's not going to solve the traffic jam. What we need to do is have a strategy to look at each vehicle, differently and organize the vehicles by type so that we can free up the traffic quickly and efficiently. Now, I know everything's honking at you, but you just can't get these things out of there faster by pointing and, screaming. Now, I know my wife's primary strategy in a traffic jam is to lay on the horn. She likes that. She just likes to honk that horn and thinks that that loud horn is going to make people go faster, but it's not. That's a tactic. That's not a strategy. So I want you to think, okay, I'm in a traffic jam. I'm responsible for undoing the traffic jam. And it's an important strategy for you to undo this traffic jam so we can move these decisions quick, fast, and better. So here's what I'm going to suggest you do. I'm going to suggest you create 3 columns on a piece of paper. One column, we'll call it trucks. And these are big business decisions typically. These are big decisions. The middle column, I'm going to call cars. Those might be case decision, client decisions, medium decisions, and then ultimately scooters. These are little decisions, but they're still clogging up the traffic jam and they're honking their horn and making noise and causing other decisions to get unmade. They're distracting you and putting greater cognitive load on your brain. So they're actually causing a traffic jam. So once again, the big decisions or business decisions for me will be trucks. In the middle, I'll put my cars, which might be case decisions, client decisions, whether to do a solo podcast, that might be my medium one. And then scooters, which are little decisions that are still causing stress. My example would be whether to replace that exercise equipment I talked to you about. And that's a little decision, but it's still clogging up things in my brain. So if you want to put me on pause, I'll sit right here and wait for you. And then when you're done, hit play and I'll come back and we'll talk again. Hey, Steve, I just want to talk to you for a minute about probably my favorite workshop to teach right now. It's called The Path to a Great Practice and a Great Life. So it doesn't matter if you're a member or if you're new to Atticus, this is a perfect place to come and start your journey of what a great practice and a great life looks like to you. There are 4 elements to the workshop. The first is about your income. If you're going to have a great practice and a great life, you're going to need some cash. One of the questions I always get asked is there a shortcut? Is there a quicker and easier way of making more money? There is, but there's a catch to it. In order to make more money, you want to study how other lawyers have increased the income and the growth of their practice. One of the things we've done at Atticus for the past 35 years is study what the top 20% earners, 10% earners, and ultimately, what do the top 1% earners do? One of the things that we do is reveal and look at what are the 4 core strategies of a top 1% attorney and how you can learn from that 1%er in increasing your practice. And that can be your shortcut. To grow your practice faster, you need to have a bold vision for what your life looks like. The wind in your sails for growth is ultimately the vision of what a great life looks like. In my experience, lawyers that have a terrific, powerful vision for a great life will grow a great practice quicker, faster, and more efficiently than those who don't. It's one thing to have a dream. It's another thing to take action and build foundations under that dream. That's the next thing that we'll work on the workshop. What are the steps you're going to take immediately from the workshop to start building on your vision of a great life and great practice? So if you're a fan of the conversation of what a great practice and great life looks like, this is the greatest opportunity for you to take action now and register for the workshop so we can work together on taking your vision of your great practice and great life and making it come to life. A link to register is included in the show notes, as well as a longer video by me explaining each element of the workshop. If you're a member of Atticus, it's included already in your membership. If you're new to Atticus, I'm giving you a promo code that will take $500 off. All you have to do is click the link below and put in podcast 500 and it'll get you the discount. So hit the link, register for the workshop. I look forward to seeing you there. With that, I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. All right, great. So I'm going to assume at this point in time, you have a column of trucks, which are big decisions, my big business decisions for me. Cars are medium decisions, or, case decisions, maybe if you're a lawyer, and then small decisions, scooters. Now, what I'd like you to do is rank them, and I rank them from easy to hard, and I would just start with the number 1. And so 1 would, if I look at my business decisions, I'll go 1 for the easiest decision there. 2 would be my next easiest decision on my business decisions, 3, 4, 5, and accordingly. I would go to my medium decisions, same thing. I'll rank them 1, 2, 3, easiest first to my hardest last. And then, of course, my scooters. I look at my scooters and rank them 1, 2, 3, easiest one to hardest one. So you're going to have big decisions ranked easiest to hardest, your medium decisions, easiest to hardest, and your little decisions, scooters, easiest to hardest. Now just organize them that way. I'll wait here. And when you're ready, we'll talk again. Okay. So we made it thus far. Here's what I'd like you to consider. Our goal is not only to get you unstuck, but to improve your decision making process, to improve your decision making capabilities. Your ability to grow that great practice and great life is directly correlated to your ability to learn how to make better, faster, more impactful decisions. One of the things I see all the time in our programs is I'll have members come back to our programs and we'll review something. And the members will say something like, well, we've covered that already. We've already talked about that. And then the next question is, have you implemented it? And they're like, no, I haven't implemented, but we've talked about it already. Now, this is where things get a little crazy because knowledge is really not power. Knowledge is understanding. Power is the application of that knowledge to your situation. And that's where learning occurs. And learning is really what we're after because really what you're trying to do is grow. Sometimes, as well educated people, we think knowledge is actually the power. It's not. It really isn't because I know brilliant people that aren't doing anything with their lives. They're just kind of being brilliant and saying, well, the world should come to me because I should be the philosopher king because I'm so brilliant. No, the world goes and rewards the people that take action and take their learning and apply it in valuable ways. So knowledge really isn't power. Knowledge is ultimately the booby price. So what I'm trying to do is get you to look at your traffic jam in your head and apply some strategies so we can unbreak that traffic jam so you can immediately apply strategy in your life to learn from and grow from. Now, a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe a week from now, you're going to have another traffic jam. That's the way this works. The more you grow, the more opportunities come to you, the more you will have the opportunity to make bigger, better decisions. Your brain will grow and adapt. Your decision making ability is a skill. So, as we look at this, I want you to look at your columns and realize our goal is not to have less traffic. Our goal is to have more traffic being processed efficiently and effectively and going to the right directions, getting off the right exits, being on time, and having less stress. But we're not trying to reduce traffic, we're trying to improve traffic flow. So that's an important thing to understand as we look at this. All right, great. Step 3. This one's a little tricky. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. This is a hardcore metacognition technique, but here it comes. What hat are you wearing? So as you look at this, we're looking right now from the perspective of a traffic cop. But we may have different decisions that we have to make that may require us to switch hats and have a different perspective of the issue. Now, for me, this is a big deal because it's one of the techniques that I developed and worked with when I was practicing. So if you think about it, your mind is having this traffic jam and you're kind of stressed out about things. You're not really sure what to do. I was having that moment when I was growing my practice, and I realized that I was afraid to make a business decision because I was approaching it like a lawyer. And I pretended I was wearing a business owner hat and I took off my lawyer hat, which required me to reframe how I was looking at the issue. Now, as a lawyer, I want to reduce risk for my client. I typically want to wait till the last minute to make a decision just in case the facts change to the better of my client. I don't want to put my client at unnecessary risk, and I don't want to make a bad judgment call on behalf of my client. So when you think about those things, those are completely opposite of what I need to do as an entrepreneur and a business owner. As an entrepreneur and a business owner, as a professional, I have to invest time and money and take a risk to grow something. I may make a judgment call on the fly. That's a quick judgment call. I may have to make quicker and faster decisions from a marketing perspective. And I think this is why so many lawyers really can't grow a practice quickly and effectively, is because we don't know which hat to wear and how to look at the issue. Here's another example of this. Let's just say, as a lawyer, I've got a case and I'm working on a pleading and I got to finish drafting the pleading. I got a couple of days to meet a deadline. It's 4:45 and I know that I want to be home by 5:30 for family dinner. My lawyer hat tells me, well, I'm behind on my billable hours. This is an important pleading. I need to work on it. And I need to go ahead and just get the job done. However, if I put on my father hat, I realize that I committed to my wife and children that I'd be home on time. And I'm now about ready to break that commitment because the lawyer part of me is now having an argument with me about finishing this. So I have to take a step back, bring out my traffic cop and say, okay, how can I do the lawyer work at a point in time tomorrow or a point in time or the next day and complete what I need to do for my client, complete my billable hour commitment, and go home on time tonight and complete my commitment as a good father. So the ability to shift these hats give you the capability to shift your perspective. While it's silly, it's actually a very powerful technique out of the field of metacognition because the little hat trick allows me to think about how I think about a particular issue. So when you look at your columns, the trucks, the cars, and the scooters, I want you to kind of put little names next to those and just say, lawyer decision, business owner decision, parent decision, and just so you can kind of organize those. And you'll see most of the time, like I do, is that I have a mishmash. I haven't really organized those. It's a lot of things going on at the same time. And then I go ahead and take a step back and I realize, wow, I've got these decisions here, and these decisions here. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that, to go ahead and put on or put next to the list what hat you might be wearing: lawyer hat, business owner hat, parent hat, spouse hat, whatever those hats are that are in your life. So go ahead and take a moment to do that. And I'll just hang out here, just hit pause. When you're ready, I'll wake back up and we'll talk some more. All right, great. Welcome back. Now we're working on who can help. That's our next strategy, our next step, number 5. Now remember, you're the traffic cop. Being the traffic cop doesn't mean you're also the driver. So you can actually assign some of the vehicles, the scooters, for example, to other people to drive. So you may look at your scooter list, and you may look at your car list, and you may look at your truck list. And your next question is, okay, who can help? Who can drive these for me? Who can get these done? How can I get these moved quicker, faster, and cheaper, other than me having to drive each vehicle out of here? You're the traffic cop. You're not the driver. So you may actually take a step back and say, okay, who can help me get these things done? Now, what I'm going to recommend when you start to look at this, on the scooters list, I would just see who I can have drive those scooters for me and get them out of the way. So in my case of the expensive piece of equipment that I've been annoyed about, I don't really need to talk to somebody about that. I just need to get over myself, get past it, and hand it off to somebody to order that piece of equipment for me. Here's a credit card, just take care of it. I don't even want to think about it anymore. On my medium list, the solo podcast, well, guess what? I made the decision. I'm here with you. We're doing a solo podcast, for better or worse. Hopefully you like it. Maybe you won't. We'll find out later. But I made my decision. Now, the big truck decision, I can't really assign that well, the lease. So what I'm going to do here is spend probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes talking to a commercial realtor who's a friend of mine, getting their feedback. And then I'm going to give myself a framework to make a decision, like a time frame to make a decision. And then I'm just going to put down how long I think that's going to take. Let's just say 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, because my friend, the realtor, is a talker. And perhaps I might be too. I'm not admitting to that at this point, but I might be. Okay. So now we've identified who can help with our scooters, cars, and trucks. Now step 6. And step 6 is my favorite, because finally we have a plan. we actually have looked at everything and we've created a plan. We're not sitting in the middle of the rotary throwing our hands up, yelling at people. We're not having the driver scream at us anymore. We actually now have a plan and we need to take action. So, what I'm going to recommend is that you do the following. Step 6 is called the sprints. Now, I'm a big fan of 5-minute, 10-minute, and 15-minute sprints. I find that I can get a lot of things done in 15 minutes that for some reason I can't seem to get done in 2 hours. I don't know why it works that way. But for you and I, the science connection on this with metacognition is that we need to protect our brain and protect our plan. So we have to turn everything off, electronics, anything that might distract us, quite frankly, and then engage in our plan. So my recommendation is that anything that's not a scooter that somebody else can drive, or a car that somebody else can drive, or maybe your trucks, you look at this and say, okay, these are 4 or 5. Once again, we're doing this by ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to recommend that you start with the easiest first because remember, our goal is to decrease the cognitive load on your brain, reduce procrastination, decrease anxiety. So, I want to recommend that we do the opposite of the classic approach for procrastination, which is the classic eat the frog first or do the worst thing first. I'm not a big fan of that right now for what we're going through. I'm a bigger fan of decreasing the traffic flow, which reduces the pressure on your brain and reduces the anxiety and frees up more cognitive capabilities for you. So, this is a technique where we go easiest first, fast. Easiest first, fast. So here's my request. My request is that you take your scooter list, those things that you can have other people drive, go meet with the person and prioritize it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever those scooters are, and ask them to go for the next 30 minutes or 50 minutes, whatever long it takes for them to get it done, and knock those things out. Just go knock them out. Then you take whatever scooters you need to drive, knock them out. And so I'd probably invest 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes total in just getting some of those scooters off the list. Then I would go to my car list and probably budget 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on what the issue there, and knock those out. And then I would look maybe 3 or 4 15-minute sprints on my truck list to just move those things forward. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is use the ability to focus your thinking. Metacognitive research basically shows us that the capability of taking quick, focused action reduces the cognitive load and prevents analysis paralysis. So it's a form of active learning. It basically gives us the ability to take quick, fast steps, learning to continuous improvement. The key here is no more than 5, 10 to 15 minutes on any of the actions. You have to put a time budget on this so your brain knows it can trust you that we're going to work for 15 minutes at the most on this particular issue. Okay, so let me see if I can summarize this for us, and then we'll conclude for today. My goal in our conversation today is to allow you to have a breakthrough in procrastination and anxiety and realize that procrastination and anxiety is a result of a vicious cycle of unmet decisions, unmet expectations that are just going in circle in your brain, and it's causing all kinds of havoc. The analogy or metaphor that we came up with was a traffic rotary, and we identified different decisions that you have to make by small, medium, large, scooters, cars, trucks. And then we developed a process for you to look at those so that you can make quicker, faster, better decisions. Remember, the goal here is not to eliminate decisions. The goal here is to improve your decision making skill. As a traffic cop in your own brain, you can't quit. You can't say, this is just too much. I can't quit. You have to understand you can't get away from your own brain. Wherever you go, there you are. So, learning how to develop this skill for quicker, faster decision making is a core skill for you if you want to have a greater life, a greater practice, and a greater impact on the world. So, this whole conversation today is about helping you get unstuck and have a fast focus strategy whenever you feel overwhelmed and paralyzed. So, here are your steps. Number 1, schedule an unstuck meeting with your brain as quickly as possible. Typically, it's going to take 15 minutes, and you want to do it in writing. Number 2, organize the traffic by the type of vehicle so we can figure out which ones we get out of there first. Number 3, what hat are you wearing? We start with our traffic cop hat so we can identify where we're at with the decision-making flow. But ultimately, we have to organize certain decisions by the certain roles we play in life. And metacognition gives us the capability to think about how we think by shifting those roles by a very, very simple trick, which is which hat are we wearing? Step 5, who can help? Sometimes we can have other people drive the scooter. Sometimes we may need advice about how to get a truck out of a ditch. But the trick here is to do quick, fast sprints around where we get help and who helps us. And then step 6 is to take action, no more than 5, 10 to 15-minute sprints. All right, as I wrap up for today, it's now your turn to be the traffic cop. Remember, this is about building better decision-making skills. Start with these steps today. Find the time, write it out by hand, categorize, prioritize, assign, and act. These steps will ultimately clear the mental congestion in your mind, reduce decision fatigue, and sharpen your decision-making skills. Remember, every small step counts because if we keep moving you forward to what that great life and that great practice looks like, you will continuously improve. Knowledge is the booby prize. Action is where you apply learning. I don't want you to take away from this podcast, well, that's a really interesting 6 steps. I really want you to apply them and see if they make a difference for you in reducing your stress, reducing the vicious cycle of procrastination. And ultimately, I'd love to hear how this worked for you. So if you can, just give me an email, text, whatever works for you. Let me know what you think of this particular episode. And as we close, just remember, it's in these moments of decision that you are investing and building in the destiny of what your great practice, great life looks like. This is how we're shaping your future. Exercises like this, times when you work with your practice advisor, times when you go to your group coaching workshop, times when you go to a workshop and support a colleague, times when you're part of the rote team. We're all here to help each other. So I hope you liked today's episode. As always, thank you for being part of my great life and my great practice. Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.